Tunisia, 1377. The crossroads of civilizations and empires. A scholar sits alone in a castle. He's writing a book that will predict the future of all empires. Not through magic, not through prophecy, through economics, through careful observation of historical patterns. His name is Ibn Khaldun, and he's about to explain why empires rise and fall in predictable cycles. Patterns that won't be discovered by European economists for another 500 years after him. This is the story of how one man figured out the secret code of civilization itself. Let's understand Ibn Khaldun. Born in 1332 in Tunis, the Islamic world is at its peak. While Europe struggles, scholars invent algebra. Ibn Khaldun grew up in this world. His family is connected to power. He studies law, philosophy, history. But Ibn Khaldun is restless. He wants to understand empires. Why do kingdoms rise? Why do civilizations collapse? Is there a pattern? By age 20, he's working in courts. He serves sultans in Morocco, Granada, Algeria. He's a diplomat, an advisor. He sees power. In 1375, everything changed. Ibn Khaldun is 43, tired of politics. He retreats to a castle. For 4 years, he wrote. The result? The Muqaddimah, social science, economics, sociology, all invented in one book. Ibn Khaldun starts with a question. Why do dynasties last exactly for generations? He's seen it repeatedly. A strong leader builds a kingdom. His son maintains it. His grandson weakens it. His great-grandson loses it. Always the same? Is it a coincidence? Or a deeper law? He begins studying economic cycles. He notices something crucial. When a new dynasty takes power, taxes are low. The founder is strong. He doesn't need much money. Low taxes mean people keep wealth. Farmers produce more. Merchants trade more. The economy booms. It creates more revenue even with low rates. Ibn Khaldun writes, at the beginning, taxation yields large revenue from small assessments, but then something happens. The second generation lives in luxury. The third is even more. The court grows. Armies get expensive. The rulers need money, so they raise taxes. At first, this worked. But Ibn Khaldun sees the trap. High taxes discourage production. People hide wealth, stop investing. The economy shrinks. So the government raises taxes higher. This makes it worse, Ibn Khaldun writes. In the end, taxation yields small revenue from large assessments. It's a death spiral. High taxes kill the economy. Weak economy forces higher taxes. The dynasty becomes desperate, corrupt. Then a new leader appears. He conquers, lowers taxes. The cycle begins again. 1378. Ibn Khaldun finishes his masterpiece. He's discovered something extraordinary. Economics follows laws. I like physics. He's identified the first economic cycle in history. What economists will later call the Laffer Curve. But Ibn Khaldun goes further, connects economics to sociology, politics, psychology. He explains why nomadic peoples conquer civilized ones. Nomads have asabiya, group solidarity. City dwellers lose this. They become soft. But once nomads conquer cities, they too become soft. Their children grow up in luxury. 3 or 4 generations later, they're conquered by new nomads. The cycle repeats. Ibn Khaldun isn't just describing history, he's predicting it. He writes, dynasties have a natural lifespan like individuals. Birth, youth, maturity, old age, death. He calculates the timeline. About 120 years. 4 generations. This is revolutionary. In 1377, nobody talked about economics like this. Europeans think poverty comes from sin, but Ibn Khaldun sees it differently. Poverty comes from high taxes. Wealth comes from low taxes. It's not moral. It's mechanical. But here's the tragedy of Ibn Khaldun. His work disappears from Western knowledge. Not literally. The books survive in libraries, but they're ignored. Forgotten. Lost to time. The Islamic world is in decline. Libraries burn. Scholars flee. The Muqaddimah sits in libraries across the Muslim world. It's unread by Europeans. Untranslated. Meanwhile, in Europe, the Renaissance begins. Centuries pass. Europe rediscovers learning. 1600s. European economists start asking the same questions Ibn Khaldun asked. Why do empires rise and fall? What's the relationship between taxes and revenue? How do economic cycles work? They have no idea. An Arab scholar already answered everything. In 1697, Pierre Bell mentioned Ibn Khaldun briefly in a footnote. In 1806, the Muqaddimah was finally translated to Turkish, but not to English, not to French, not to any European language yet. European economists keep discovering Ibn Khaldun's ideas independently. Adam Smith writes about division of labor in 1776. Ibn Khaldun wrote about it in 1377, 400 years earlier. Thomas Malthus wrote about population and resources in 1798. Ibn Khaldun covered it 400 years before. David Ricardo discovered comparative advantage in 1817. Ibn Khaldun explained it in the 14th century. The Laffer Curve got its name in 1974. Ibn Khaldun drew the same curve 600 years before Arthur Laffer. It's one of history's greatest intellectual tragedies, mind centuries ahead of his time, working in isolation, creating an entire science that the world won't rediscover for half a millennium. But the story doesn't end here. Because in the 20th century, something finally changed. Scholars finally read the Muqaddimah properly, carefully. They realize what they're looking at. Not just history, not just philosophy. The foundation of modern economics, sociology, political science. All in one 14th century Arabic text written by one man. The question becomes, how much did Ibn Khaldun really understand? Did he predict our modern world accurately? Do his cycles still apply today in the 21st century? Can his theories explain modern economic crises? The answers are absolutely stunning. When scholars finally study Ibn Khaldun seriously, they're shocked. His theories aren't just interesting, they're accurate. They work. Let's look at what he actually predicted. First, the tax revenue curve. Ibn Khaldun said, low taxes create high revenue, high taxes create low revenue. In 1974, economist Arthur Laffer drew the same curve on a napkin. It became famous. Laffer Curve. Politicians use it. Economists debate it. Nobody mentions that Ibn Khaldun described it 600 years earlier. Second, economic cycle theory. Ibn Khaldun said economies move in predictable waves. Growth, peak, decline, collapse, renewal. In 1860, Clement Juglar discovered business cycles. In 1923, Joseph Kitchen identified short cycles. 1925, Nikolai Kondrata found long waves. All of them independently rediscovered what Ibn Khaldun wrote in 1377. Third, division of labor. Ibn Khaldun explained how specialization creates wealth. When people focus on specific skills, productivity explodes. Cities thrive because workers specialize. Adam Smith writes the exact same thing in The Wealth of Nations, published 1776, 400 years after Ibn Khaldun. Fourth, supply and demand. Ibn Khaldun understood. Price is determined by scarcity and desire, not by moral worth, not by labor hours, by what people want versus what's available. This became the foundation of modern economics. But Ibn Khaldun knew it in the 1300s. Fifth, the concept of surplus value. Ibn Khaldun explained that profit comes from adding value. Labor transforms raw materials into finished goods. The difference is economic surplus. Karl Marx will build an entire ideology around this in 1867, but Ibn Khaldun explained it neutrally, scientifically, 5 centuries earlier. Here's where it gets really interesting. Ibn Khaldun's cycle theory predicts modern economic crises. Let's test it. Take the Roman Empire. Rome starts strong, low taxes, high growth. Economy booms for centuries, and the later emperors need money, wars, infrastructure, bureaucracy, taxes, increase, economy weakens. By 400 AD, taxes were crushing. Production collapses, the empire falls, exactly as Ibn Khaldun's model predicts. Take the Soviet Union, strong revolutionary energy at the start, Asibia. Rapid industrialization, growth. But then bureaucracy grows, corruption spreads, efficiency drops. The system becomes rigid, unable to adapt. 1991. Collapse. Ibn Khaldun's four-generation rule. About 75 years for the USSR. Not exact, but close enough. Take the 2008 financial crisis. Ibn Khaldun would recognize this immediately. A dynasty of bankers, growing soft, taking excessive risks, losing the discipline that built their wealth, over-leveraged, overconfident, disconnected from reality, then collapse. Government bailouts, higher taxes to pay for the rescue, weakened economy, slower growth. The cycle continues. But Ibn Khaldun offers something modern economics often misses. He connects economics to human nature. Modern economists use complex mathematical models. They predict markets like physics equations. But they forget people aren't atoms. People have emotions, cultures, social bonds. Ibn Khaldun never forgets this. His asabiya concept explains so much. Why do startups disrupt giant corporations? The startup has asabiya, group solidarity, hunger, focus. The corporation has bureaucracy, politics, comfort. Why do dynasties fall? Loss of asabiya, loss of shared purpose. Why do some nations rise while others stagnate? Strong social cohesion versus fragmentation. This is sociology and economics combined, something modern academics separate. Ibn Khaldun sees them as one science. So what happened to Ibn Khaldun's legacy? After writing the Muqaddimah, he continued working. He moved to Cairo, becomes a judge, teaches students. He's respected but not famous beyond scholarly circles. He died in 1406, age 74. His books survive in libraries across the Islamic world. But the Islamic Golden Age is ending. The Mongol invasions devastated Baghdad decades earlier. The Black Death kills millions. The Ottoman Empire rises, but focuses on conquest, not scholarship. Europe enters the Renaissance, discovers science, invents capitalism. They developed the same ideas Ibn Khaldun had, but independently, from scratch. It takes until the 20th century for Western scholars to truly discover him. 1950s, Arnold Toynbee studies him, amazed by what he finds. 1960s, economists start reading the Muqaddimah carefully. 1980s, he's recognized as a founder of sociology. Today, Ibn Khaldun is finally getting his due recognition. Universities study him. Economists quote him frequently. But imagine if history went differently. Imagine if the Muqaddimah was translated in 1400. European scholars could have built on his work. Economics as a science might have started 400 years earlier. The Enlightenment could have come sooner. The Industrial Revolution accelerated. Modern prosperity was achieved centuries ago. This is the cost of lost knowledge. When civilizations fall, when libraries burn, when scholars flee, humanity loses more than buildings. We lose ideas, insights, progress itself. We have to rediscover everything. But here's the positive lesson. Ibn Khaldun worked alone. In isolation, no universities backing him, no peer review, no research grants, just one brilliant mind observing patterns. He created an entire science from scratch. This shows the power of clear thinking, of observation, of asking the right questions. You don't need massive institutions to discover the truth. You need curiosity, discipline, courage. So what's Ibn Khaldun's lesson for us? First, economic cycles are real. Booms and busts follow patterns. Low taxes create growth. High taxes create decline. Second, social cohesion matters. Asabiya builds nations. When people share purpose, they achieve anything. Third, civilization is fragile. Knowledge can be lost for centuries. Fourth, ideas can wait. Ibn Khaldun's work was forgotten for 500 years, but the truth doesn't expire. Finally, discoveries come from unexpected places. A scholar alone in a castle, seeing what no one else could see. Ibn Khaldun proved economics is a science, that history follows laws. He did this in 1377, without computers, without institutions, just a brilliant mind. This inspired you? Subscribe. History is about ideas that shape civilization. Sometimes one person sees the truth, centuries before anyone else. That's Ibn Khaldun. It's a man who saw the future.